Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wealthy Women Warriors Tribe Thrive TV broadcast. I'm so excited again to be with you today. We have just an incredible woman that I feel so privileged to have on our platform, to be able to work with, to be able to bounce ideas off of, and really to be able to provide just wonderful, incredible information that is really helping a ton of women out. And that is Kathy Taberner, and she is one of the co-founders of the Institute of Curiosity. And she wrote this incredible book with her daughter, who we interviewed yesterday, Kirsten, The Power of Curiosity. And today we're going to be talking about the $1 million question that women aren't asking. So welcome, Kathy. I just about called you Kirsten. Thank you so much for being here. It's just a delight to see your face and, of course, to be on our live broadcast with you.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Andrea.
Well, let's dive right in. Let's talk a little bit. You and I connected. Gosh, I feel like it was so long ago now. It probably hasn't been that long, but we connected a while ago, and really what happened for us was pretty magical. We started talking about some of the issues that women are faced with right now. We spoke about some of the pillars that we have within Wealthy Woman Warrior. And what happened was that I really was able to see how much knowledge you have around some of the hard conversations that we're not having. And part of that starts with being able to have a real conversation. So let's peek into that first. So I'm going to ask you, what does it mean? What does it mean to have a real conversation?
Well, I think it's something we don't have very often. I think we really understand each other, and it's just so often we have conversations with other people when we're not really listening to them. They're not really listening to us. And so in our workshops, so often we'll say, okay, so how many times during a day do you feel really listened to? Okay. And most people put up their hands for 10 to 20% of the time. And that's really crazy to think that we don't listen to each other. And if we don't, how are we really connecting? So I think a real conversation is one where we listen to each other and we really see people, hear people, and seek to understand, so we connect on a deeper level.
So let's talk a little bit more about that. Now, you're going to be obviously one of our featured instructors, ambassadors, our communication ambassador on Wealthy Women Warriors TribeThrive training platform. And I'm a little bit curious because what you've started to do, and I love reading your blog posts. Your blog posts are amazing. You can get access to that on our Wealthy Women Warrior platform as well. We'll post that in just a moment. But you wrote an article where we were talking about the acronym ABSORB. And so one of the things that, before we get into the $1 million question, one of the things that I feel happens, and what you just said was, okay, so we feel heard 10 to 20% of our day. That's pretty shocking, because if we're not being heard, then how are we actually interacting? How are we showing up? How are we communicating throughout our entire day?
Well, I would suggest that most of the time we're not. It's just we're just going through the process, I guess, or we're not doing it in a way that really has any meaning. And I think people are feeling so overwhelmed. We've got so much social media, so many different ways to connect, and people have just they're not inclined anymore to think, oh, it takes too much time to call, I'll just send a text, or oh, it takes too much time to really have a conversation, so I'll avoid it. And it's not serving us well. And it's just, I think it's feeding the overwhelm that we continue to have. And unless we begin to change and stop reacting and start responding, we're not going to be able to have that sense of, oh, I really connected with that person. I understand what's needed. And, so many times we think, yeah, okay, I'll do it. And we don't, or we do it wrong. And then we have to go back and redo whatever it was. It takes more time than if we just been paying attention the first time. And we model that to our kids. And then we wonder why our kids as teens say, yeah, sure, and never do it. And we say, you're not listening to me. Well, what kind of a role model have they had? Of course they're not listening to us. They can't expect to be doing anything else.
Well, and it's interesting. I mean, it's funny. So one of my guilty pleasures, I'm going to share a guilty pleasure with I'm a Gen Xer. So when I was growing up, I was a latchkey kid, and I'd come home, and one of the things that we would watch are Law and Order Special Victim Unit, or whatever that's called. I don't even know how to say the proper name. Isn't that terrible? But my guilty pleasure is that it's still one of my things that I will watch if I'm just needing downtime. Like, I don't watch a lot of new stuff because, anyways, It's not great for my brain, but it's my guilty pleasure. Now, the reason I'm sharing this is because one of the episodes that I watched over the weekend, it was this couple who both of them were working, both of them had their own jobs, and they had a child in a playground, and they weren't paying attention to the child because they were both on their phones. And, it's funny because that situation, now I'm not going to talk about the actual episode, but one of the things that we're even doing in our day-to-day life is we're not showing up fully and presently because we've got all of these other things that are going on. And we can't even, when we're working, take our phone and put it down or put it in our purse. I don't know if you saw, there was a great, on LinkedIn, it was, I can't even remember. I want to say it was Sheryl Sandberg, but it may not have been her, who had posted, you want to know how to be more productive? And then there's this video of a woman putting her cell phone in her purse. It's that easy.
Yeah.
This is what you're talking about, right? This is what you're talking about. So we're not showing up because we've got all of these other distractions. So why are so many women, I know that is one of the issues, but why are so many women then struggling to be able to communicate what it is that they do want? Is it just because of those distractions, or is there more to it?
Well, I think there's more to it. And so often when I'm coaching, I'll say, okay, so what do you want? Because people say, oh, I've got this problem. So what do you want? Or where do you want to be in 3 years? Or whatever it is. I have no idea what I want. I know I don't want A, B, C, and D, but I don't know what I want. Yeah. Well, if we don't know what we want, we're never going to get it. And I think the smorgasbord of our lives has increased so much. When you think of a smorgasbord you used to go to, or maybe one you go to once now, but a very small one, there used to be maybe 2 courses and 3 or 4 choices in each one. So it was pretty easy. But now I think our lives are like this enormous smorgasbord of food from 50 different countries. And we look at it and it's overwhelming and we can't figure out what we want. And so in a smorgasbord, it's okay to take a little bit of a lot of things. In life, we can't do that if we want to get ahead. We need to have some intention and be able to respond in a way that will help us get where we want to be. So I think there's this overwhelm from social media, from so many different places, and we have got so much abundance in our lives of stuff that people just, it's overwhelming for them. And they just can't, they don't know what to do, so they're in this place of moving through life, but not really enjoying it. And, if we don't enjoy every day, what's the point? It's going to be over, and we're going to reflect back and think, where did it all go?
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting too, you shared a story about yourself as a little girl. You shared a story with me at one point about being a little girl and, being reminded, and not just reminded. Your generation, you were point blank told you should be seen and not heard.
Absolutely. And yes, I just remember that so often growing up. Little girls are to be seen and not heard. And
Yep.
so we didn't learn how to express our wants. We were not really permitted to have wants because as little girls, you didn't say anything. And so I think now for the mom who grew through that era of everything being suppressed. And if we did speak up, oh, she's being awfully aggressive, don't you think? Which you still see now with women politicians in different areas of life. Well, you know, it's okay for a man to speak up, but if a woman does, you know, she's pretty aggressive. And we still got that gender issue that continues to be resolved, sort of. But I think your generation didn't learn from our generation because we didn't know how to do it, how to speak up. I think your generation's much better at it. And still, I think the next generation is going to be even better.
Well, and I think, you know, it's interesting that you say that because I was invited on Monday. I'm feeling a little bit shocked about this, but I was invited on Monday to give a TED Talk on Friday. And my talk is all about, you know, how collaboration is the pivot for parity. And so when I've looked at it from my perspective, though, from the Gen Xer. And what's interesting about the Gen Xer is the Gen Xer is, you know, documented the generation that raised itself. And so what's happened is that women have become doers. And because we're doing, we're not listening. We're not recognizing other people around us. We're doing it all for ourselves, reinventing the wheel, and not using the power of our network to go further, farther, and faster. So it's interesting that you share that from your perspective. You know, girls should be seen and not heard. Now, in our generation, girls were heard. We could be anything, do anything, have anything. And we have the biggest amount of burnout, overwhelm, and depression because we're not listening, we're not communicating, we're not talking, we're not sharing, we're not collaborating.
And also, I think a lot of, from my experience of coaching Gen Xers, there's still a sense that I'm not good enough.
Oh, 100%. It doesn't matter what your accolades are, right? That's the scary part. We have the highest educated because, you know, our generation, we're some of the generation that were the first to go to school, first to live on our own, first to have the choice to get married or say, you know what, I don't want to do this. We had choices that your generation didn't have. But because of those choices, just like what you were talking about, we are so overwhelmed that every accolade we get, every designation, every title behind our name is still not enough.
It is, and when I ask people, so what are you afraid of if you don't get this done by this, you know, what's going to happen? Well, I'll feel terrible. Well, so there's no one telling you have a deadline or that you have to do whatever it is. No, it's just me. Yeah. So what is the fear behind that? It's fascinating how many of your generation just, it doesn't matter who or what. And I coach some pretty skilled women and they're not good enough. And it's back to the old refrigerator box under the bridge, you know, as we're at the fear of failure at the end.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's interesting, you know, because one of the things that you had said about our generation and coaching and working with our generation and where your platform and where your programs really drive results from is that there are these inadequate beliefs that we're telling ourselves inside. And then instead of getting curious, we're just behaving, we're acting from that place. So we're consistently acting from a place of terror. We're acting from a place of terror when it comes to money, when it comes to being able to say what it is that we want without feeling like we're either passive aggressive or aggressive. You know, we're scared of parenting our children in a way that will hurt them, and yet the emotional component at times is so much that we just can't handle it. So we just push it away. And there's this piece of, you know, moms, and so many Gen Xers are now at the peak of motherhood, and it feels like nothing is going well. It feels like in every area there's a failure.
Yes.
So, let's talk a little bit about what it means to be able to speak what we're feeling, speak what we're hearing, and how to start communicating just a smidge of what's real. Can we do that?
Sure. Well, I think the essence or the foundation of that is self-awareness. And until people take that deep breath and reflect back on how they're feeling right now, instead of just being on a treadmill of reacting through everything, it's not going to happen. And it's the biggest gift we can give ourselves. And for a lot of us, we just think, well, we can't give ourselves a gift. So then we can change it and say, okay, let's reframe. I need to give if I'm taking care of myself and I'm aware of what's going on for me inside me, I'm a better parent. I'm a better professional. I'm a better wife. I'm a better whatever. It doesn't matter. We can be better for others if we take care of ourselves. And one of the fundamentals of that is developing self-awareness. And that sense of when buttons are being pushed and what's happening. Being aware of our values and how they connect our lives, creating boundaries. I mean, I find Gen X's, we didn't have boundaries, but we didn't have the smorgasbord that needed the boundaries. Your generation has the smorgasbord and needs the boundaries, and they're not. People aren't creating them, and so just this rapid bombardment of stuff that's happening, and people react all the time instead of being in a place of self-awareness and becoming really aware when our emotional buttons are pushed and what's the reason for that, and setting some intention around it so we can respond instead of react.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because, I spoke 2 weeks ago at an event, and I asked the audience, this may have been a bad question, but I asked the audience, there are no bad questions. Yeah, exactly. I need that from you, Kathy. I asked the audience though, like, how many of you feel like you are self-aware? And it was all women, and every single woman raised their hand. Now, what's interesting about that is that every single woman raised their hand. And then my second question was, how many of you are dealing with severe conflict right now that's mainly up here, that you're mainly struggling with in your mind? It may not be apparent to anybody out here, but in here, you're really struggling.
Yeah.
And more than half, I would say more than half of the audience put up their hand, said me. So, it's interesting that we have this belief that, we're self-aware, but yet we're all dealing with conflict. And that actually leads us directly into the $1 million question. So can you tell me what the $1 million question is and why what we're talking about today is so important?
Well, we think the $1 million question is exactly that conflict that people it may be the conflict with themselves where they're putting too many expectations on themselves, where they're feeling they're always a failure. And as a result, excuse me, they're putting these huge expectations on themselves that it's causing conflict within inside them, or it may be conflict with others. And so for whichever reason, we feel these emotional buttons being pushed. And when we all know that sense of overwhelm we get when we're in that situation, and it may be someone makes a comment, it may be our little voice in our head says something, whatever it is, we begin to feel that sense of overwhelm. And it could be manifest in sadness, anger, anxiety, fear, doesn't matter, shame. Any of these things it can manifest that way, and then we react. Bingo. And we either say things that we later wish I hadn't said that, and now I have to apologize, or we retreat into silence, which doesn't help us communicate what we need in that moment. So what we want, as we were talking about a minute ago. And so we need to shift that, become aware of what's going on inside us, what's causing this, and how we can change that.
Absolutely. Well, it's interesting too, one of the things that I just really heard you say was, we will say things that we later regret. And that doesn't matter whether it's happening at home or whether it's happening in the workplace. because of this overreaction, we're seeing this more. And we're seeing it not just in corporate. I see it with employee retention, with entrepreneurs. I see it with how they're dealing with their clients, or how they're selling, or how they're actually building their business. With vendors, I'm seeing, how maybe they haven't laid things out very well and are struggling because they themselves have projected themselves as experts, and they're not. This I'm starting to see a lot of, all over the place, in fact. And it's scary, right? It's scary. And one of the things that you said, and sorry, I'm taking a roundabout way to get there, but one of the things that you said was, we either retreat in silence or we apologize. And I don't know how many of us are actually apologizing these days, because that would just be another way of failure showing up. And so I'm seeing a lot of blocks between being able to show up and be really genuine. I don't even want to use the word authentic anymore, because there's so many people that are using it in their marketing that it doesn't feel authentic anymore. Yeah. But, showing up in a genuine way and being like, I'm meeting you here. I believe in you. I can have a conversation with you. We're not doing that. That's not happening. Most of it is we're retreating, and we're retreating behind our screens. We're retreating behind these guys. We're retreating in ways that is not productive. And so, when we look at all these things, what do you think we can start doing? Maybe one simple tip that we can start doing today, so that being present, getting out of conflict, showing up can actually start to happen.
Okay, just before I go there, I just would like to add to what you just said, the whole notion of possibility. And what I see is, and it could be in a store, it could be in any, service industry communication that I'm having. So often I see people either not giving an option or shutting down or doing something. And I just think, wow, that was a lost possibility. I really wanted to buy this. I really wanted to have this, or whatever, it doesn't matter. But people are shutting down. And so they're missing opportunities in their lives, in their work life and their home life, because of the way they're not showing up, or the way they're showing up is causing them to be in retreat, or just be a bystander in their own life.
So give me on that. So let's do it from a personal perspective so that we can really understand what that means. Give us an example of how that's showing up for, let's say, the Gen Xer with their kids.
Okay, so well, I mean, they let's say they're taking their child in to buy a pair of shoes. I'm not sure what you want, but they're taking their child in to buy a pair of shoes. And the child says, I want this shoe. And so they say, do you have this shoe? And the sales clerk, nope, and walks on and just is not engaged at all. And you also have another person, and they're not really in their lives. They're not taking advantage of this opportunity to connect and to build a relationship so they get a sale. And instead, they're just tuning out. So what would it be like for that person to say, oh, well, this one's really popular. We're out of it right now. These are others that people really like, or, this is another store you can get. It doesn't matter, connecting with the child instead of the mom and finding out what they really want in the shoe. And maybe, well, everybody in my class has this shoe, so I have to have it. Well, maybe you want to start a new trend. Wouldn't it be cool? This one's just come in and, this is what everyone's going, whatever. I find so many times, I think, wow, what a lost opportunity that was. You had a possibility of connecting with someone and creating a service, and instead just tuned out. So that's...
And that example ripples into as well the example of women who are selling their own services, because 80% of women-run businesses are now service-based businesses. And yet women are at the lowest point of that sales threshold, likely because they're not listening to their clients. They're not listening to their customers, just like what you said. Yes?
Absolutely. They're not listening, and they're not focused on finding out what it is that the client wants. And if they don't know what the client wants, they can't make sure, it's not about, oh, well, I have this great service and I can do this for you. It's, what do you need? How can I serve you? And as you ask the questions, you find out from the person what they need, and you can provide that. Then you can frame it in a way that's going to connect with them, instead of, no, I can do this, and oh, you should be doing that. It's changing. Anyhow, so getting back to what's one thing we can do. I've been thinking about this. What I do on a regular basis, I meditate every day, and I do it because I know that I'm doing it for everyone I serve, because I know that if I'm at my best and I'm present, then I'm going to be able to serve others more effectively. That's it. But I would suggest, if people don't want to get into the whole meditation thing, just to take a deep breath, pause, and at one point during the day, set an intention to respond in a conversation, not react. So to just, when you're talking to somebody, just take a moment, try and connect in that conversation, respond to what's being said, really listening to be able to respond instead of that quick react, move on.
Right.
It doesn't take any more time. And that's how we begin to have that connection that creates understanding.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kathy, for being here today. I really appreciate it. I can look forward to way more broadcasts with you. We're just getting started. And of course, for more broadcasts, what you're going to want to do is join the Facebook TribeThrive. And it's Facebook.com/The Real TribeThrive. And we're going to have a number of different, contests and surveys and really cool things, because we believe in listening to our tribe, just as Kathy was sharing. And by participating, by being in this group, you actually have the opportunity to not only be in some of our training programs that you can win for free, you also get access, or will get access to, some of the training programs that we have out there for you. So please join us on The Real TribeThrive, and we can't wait to start collaborating, working together, and helping you not only reach your economic potential, but reach your personal and professional potential as well. Have a brilliant day today, and TribeThrive, you've got this. Bye for now.